primer fitting. All right, so that's all nice and flush on there. All right, so I'm gonna be installing one of my favorite toilets, and I've literally installed at least 100 of these, and I'm gonna get into the reasons of why I like this American Standard toilet so much, but I wanna go over a bunch of mistakes and common problems people have when installing toilets, including different problems with the flange and a whole bunch of other things. So I'm gonna get into that with this video, and wait to the end because I think my last tip is really gonna help you out and ensure that you have a good installation. Okay, so the first thing that you have to do before you even get a toilet is to measure what the center of your toilet flange is from the existing wall. And this is going to entail what size toilet you need. They have many different sizes between 10, 12, and 14-inch rough ends. So I'm going to measure just back to my tile. Now, if you have base trim, you want to go back to the main wall surface. But since I have tile straight to the floor, I'm just measuring straight from the floor over. And as you can see, I have about a 9¼ inches to the center of my toilet. So that's going to require me to get a 10-inch rough in so that I have enough distance. Each toilet, the difference between the 10, 12, and 14 is basically the tank either thickness or depth that it goes back towards the wall. In my experience, everything's within an inch. So if you have 11 inches, a 12-inch rough in will work. If you have 9 inches, a 10-inch rough in will work. If you have a really old toilet you're replacing, most likely it's going to be a 14-inch. But I would just recommend, even before you take out your existing toilet, just measure from the center of your bolts of your toilet to the wall to ensure that you get the right size toilet. If you're doing a new build or you're redoing your water supplies, I recommend that you put your valves coming out of the wall. That's usually the best way to go versus coming through the floor, but it all depends on the scenario. If you don't have, if you have an exterior wall where you can't get insulation behind it, you might have to come through the floor. But my recommendation is to come over 8 inches from the center and then 8 inches off the floor. That'll allow me to use a 12-inch supply line without too much slack. So 8 inches off the center, 8 inches off the floor. And also if you were doing drywall or had some bigger baseboard, this is usually high enough where the escutcheon plate's not gonna hit. Right now I have basically, I could put a 6-inch baseboard down there and this escutcheon plate won't be hitting that. Okay, so the reason there's a lot of reasons why I use this toilet, the American Standard Cadets. This is actually called an Edgemere, but I got this because it's a 12-inch rough-in. But these kits come with everything included, except a couple things, and we'll get into one of the things that I usually don't use on this, and I just throw it out and use a better deal. But I'll get to that in a minute. But basically, it has everything incorporated into this system, and there's a couple really great features that makes this really DIY friendly. So we'll get this taken out, put together, and we'll set it into place. Okay. So I personally like putting everything together outside of installing the toilet. You know, if it's a little too heavy for you, there's no problem. You can just install the base first and then connect your tank. So you just put your little gasket on here, make sure that it fits the shape of your fitting there. And then these already have the bolts in them. So you just place it on top. And you can see inside of here, there's rubber gaskets around those screws already. And while I'm here, I might as well mention one of the real nice things about American Standard toilets is they all use Fluid Master valves. So these are really easy to replace, and you know, it's a reputable company, so I've never had an issue with the flow valve. But being Fluid Master, being a name brand, gut really makes a big difference. And then what's nice is they give you the tool to actually just crank this on. That's kind of a nice feature. You don't have to have any other tools. It already has the tool to connect it. So the one thing I don't really care for that it comes with are these little wax rings that come with it. Well, this actually isn't a bad one. I've seen actually cheaper versions of this. All intents and purposes, you can use this and just be fine. I would recommend though that you go with a foam gasket. I like these for many different reasons, but one of them is the fact that I can take the toilet out. You know, if you're in a renovation project, you can keep reusing this foam gasket because it's not going to compress like wax and you won't be able to use it again. The other thing is that it's a little bit more user-friendly. If I don't place my toilet down accurately, this isn't going to be affected. Whereas if you put your toilet over a wax wing incorrectly, you're going to have to get a new wax ring. So I like the foam gaskets. I think they're worth the extra expense. And again, if you're in a renovation project, you can just keep reinstalling the toilet each day. So in case you needed to put that in every day, it's a really great alternative to it. So, but I am going to use the bolts that it comes with because I like the little locking nuts that they have on them. That's a pretty nice feature. It keeps your studs from moving so that they don't flop around when you're trying to put the toilet on. So they're just a little locking nut. And as you can see, my toilet flange is sitting on top of the tile. I did that intentionally. Typically, if you have the flange a 1/4 inch above or flush with the tile, that is usually the best scenario. If you're down below, you can be down about a 1/4 inch, but I would recommend you being either flush or above to ensure that you have a good seal. Now, if you are down below, you can use an extension ring. These are really easy to use and that can get you even with the tile. A lot of times when you do tile work, you're going around an existing flange and then you just need to bump it up that tile layer. So you can add as many of these as you need. You can do 2, 3 of these if you needed to extend that flange up. Just be sure to silicone them into place. Now, if you have your existing toilet flange that's all rotten, that's a whole nother scenario. You would have to basically cut out that old flange and possibly get a push-in type of flange for an easy repair, or just completely replace the entire flange elbow. Okay, so you want to tighten it down. You want to measure to the wall to kind of keep these straight. So 9 inches, 9 inches. You have a bit of lead room on that, but it's nice to measure that. And we'll just get our green gasket out here, and we'll be ready to set this down. Okay, so this is a really another nice feature. They make these little caps, or these little tightener caps. And what's nice about this is that you don't have to cut the toilet bolts. You can just basically hand tighten the toilet down into place. So you can see how this makes it a nice height. Really isn't any excess hose. One of the best things about this is you don't have to cut those toilet bolts. You can just slide these right over those caps nice and easily, so no additional cutting needed. It says soft close too, which is nice. So pay attention to where this fills to. You kind of want it to be just down below the overflow. And this guy should be in here. Okay, so that's kind of going to keep it continually dripping. So you want to turn this counterclockwise. Basically, you want to lower the float. Yeah, that's good. That's about a 1/2 inch below the top of that overflow. That's good. But if you need to continue to adjust it, keep making it counterclockwise and it'll lower the water in the tank. Okay, so caulking the bottom of your toilet, it's not only going to really make it secure, but it's going to keep it sanitary as well. There's nothing worse than having something, water or whatever, going underneath the toilet where you can't clean. So I highly advise, for sanitary reasons, to use silicone. It'll also really help adhere the tub to the toilet. So I would just leave the space out behind the toilet just in case something leaked and you can notice it, but then just caulk the rest all the way around. Okay, then the big tip is to use some Windex. Spray this so that you don't get it smeared on the actual tile surface. I did want to mention about this particular toilet install. Obviously, I'm going up against tile, and you can see my toilet tank is tight to the wall. So that 9¼ inches is about all you're going to get out of a toilet. But if this was drywall, this would not be a great scenario because the tank could sweat and then cause moisture to get into your drywall surface, possibly cause some mold. So you don't want to have your tank completely tight to the wall like this, but since we're over tile, it's not going to hurt anything and we will be good. But yeah, just pay attention to that. Pay attention to those centers of that rough in. Now, we were pretty tight all the way around in this scenario, so hopefully you don't have anything similar to that. So I hope some of those tips have helped you out. You know, there's a lot of different scenarios where things can be a little bit more challenged to install. If you have an uneven floor, you might want to consider getting some toilet shims to be able to shim up your toilet properly. And if you're going that route, I definitely recommend a jumbo wax ring or using one of these foam gaskets. It's going to have the most volume for you to overcome any unevenness on your floor. But give me a comment down below. Let me know if any of your tips that you might have encountered that have helped you out with installing a toilet. And definitely subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.